Would you like a little extra support before you start the 7.6.11 lesson? This is an optional activity that was created to help you with the lesson. 7.6.11 is about using equations to solve problems. The learning target says, I can solve story problems by drawing and reasoning about a tape diagram or by writing and solving an equation. Chinook mathematicians try to make sense of different situations and problems. You understand the problem, you name the quantities, and you draw a model. In class, we talk about reading problems a minimum of 3 times. You can cover up the numbers, and you want to try to figure out what's happening in the situation, who is involved. You're trying to make sense of the problem. Priya was busy studying this week and ran blank fewer miles than last week. She ran blank times as far as Elena ran this week. Elena only had time to run blank miles this week. Pause the video and write down your understanding of the problem. Here are a few things that you might have written down when you're trying to make sense of this situation. 2 people are runners. Priya's miles between this week and last week are compared. Priya and Elena's miles are compared for this week. And we're told how many miles Elena ran this week. In this situation, what are the quantities? Priya was busy studying this week and ran 7 fewer miles than last week. She ran 9 times as far as Elena ran this week. Elena only had time to run 4 miles this week. So we have 7 fewer miles than last week. We have 9 times as far as Elena ran this week. And Elena ran 4 miles this week. There's also a little bit more information to the situation. A, how many miles did Priya run last week? Elena wrote the equation to describe the situation. Her equation says 1/9 times the quantity x minus 7 equals 4. She solved the equation by multiplying each side by 9 and then adding 7 to each side. How does her solution compare to the way you found Priya's miles? Part A says, how many miles did Priya run last week? Part B says, Elena wrote the equation to describe the situation. 1/9 times the quantity x minus 7 equals 4. It says she solved the equation by multiplying each side by 9 and then adding 7 to each side. How does her solution compare to the way you found Priya's miles? In Part A, we have to find how many miles Priya ran last week. In Part B, we have to compare our method with Elena's method. As we continue to make sense of this situation, we really should draw a model using the situation and the equation. So go ahead and pause the video, write it down, draw a model. Let's look at the equation one more time. The equation is saying 1/9 of the quantity x minus 7 equals 4. In our model, we have x minus 7. We're saying, and then we have 9 parts, equal parts. And we're saying 1 part out of 9 is equal to 4. Does your model look like this? Let's try out some other problems. The directions to this section say match each equation to its solution and to the story it describes. So we are given some equations, we're given some solutions, and we're given some stories or situations. Let's make sense of and understand situation 1. The temperature is -7. Since midnight, the temperature tripled and then rose 5 degrees. What was the temperature at midnight? This problem is about the temperature changing. Did you figure out if the temperature is increasing or decreasing? The temperature is -7. Since midnight, the temperature tripled and then rose 5 degrees. What was the temperature at midnight? There are several quantities about temperature in this situation. Looks like the current temperature is -7. The temperature has been changing since midnight. It tripled, then it increased 5 degrees. Before you go any further, draw a model that matches the situation. Here's a possible model. We have -7, 3 x's, and then a 5. So the current temperature, -7. Since midnight, the temperature tripled. Don't know what that temperature was, so we have 3 x's, which tripled is the same as 3 times something. And then the temperature rose 5 degrees, so there's an additional 5 here. Which of these equations match this situation and our model? From our model, we can see that the total, so one part of the equation, one side of the equation, is going to equal -7. When I look at these different equations, it looks like C is the only one that has a -7 on one side of the equation. We also have 3 x's plus a 5. When I look through the equations, it looks like we have 3 x's plus a 5 for equation C. Which of these solutions fit the situation and the equation and match the model? There are a couple of ways to check to see which solution works. We can just start at the top and take solution number 1, which is -4, and we can replace every place that we see an x here, and we can put a -4 here. That's one way. So -4, we have -4, we have -4, and that would equal -12, and then we add that together with 5, and then we would get -7 here, and we have a -7 here. Another way that we can do this is that we can take the equation, 3x plus 5 equals -7, and we can put the -4 where the x is. So we can rewrite this equation, 3 times -4 plus 5 equals -7, and then we do some math. -12, we got 3 times -4 was -12. We still have our -5, and then we still have our +5, and we still have our -7. And then we put these two quantities together, -12 plus 5, that equals -7, and we still have our -7 here. Yes, -7 equals -7. Remember, Chinook mathematicians always make sense of the math, the situation, the bar model, the equation. You try to understand the problem, you name the quantities, you draw a model. You can read the problem 2 or 3 or more times if you need to. Now you can go to lesson 7.6.11 and complete the work that is not optional in Google Classroom.